was a day unusual for autumn, warm but not wet with heat. As though summer, the soft breeze like millions of tiny fingers caressing my body as it whispered seductively through the trees. It may have only been minutes.
Folks, we've got a problem. What you're looking at is the latest family-type advertising effort our company is going to market our merchandise with. You see, we own a bear ranch. That's one there. No, I mean there. Now, bear skins ain't expensive like mink, but they can take a lot of handling and still wear good, and hold up well against the pressures of the elements. The sand, the sea, and, well, the elements. Of course, most people buying bear use them for rather formal-type funnin'. Balls, banquets, premieres. You know, them fancy-type Hollywood openings. Actually, we don't push their use for beaching and weenie bakes. But they are versatile. Sand and chiggers just kind of brush loose easy if you do find yourself entertaining informal-like. And, of course, they're great for dens and denning parties. Now, bear, beside being a durable piece of skin, has the soft, luxurious feel of skunk. Now, I mentioned at the beginning we had a problem. Well, you see, our company simply ain't selling much. And bear ranching ain't no hobby with us. Why, trapping them, skinning them, and curing them adds up to mighty costly overhead. And as the saying in the trade goes, it's not the skins you got hanging, it's what's being bared that counts. Now, it ain't that we haven't been advertising either. We even made a TV commercial. One of them modern types with beatniks and coffee drinking, everybody acting kind of carefree and silly. You know, it didn't sell a skin. Of course, you can't really appreciate a fur behind a bunch of beard. Them goatees them fellers wear just ain't a good background for bear selling. Let's face it, there's nothing bear about her. Well, anyway, the Association of Bear Breeding has come to our aid and is helping us with our latest advertising effort, and we kind of expect a big return. Another selling point for bear is this skin covering the lady. It ain't skimpy. It couldn't be and do the job. This particular number is our After 5 model, so popular in the polar region. In fact, that's one of our slogans. The sun never sets on a bear skin. It wouldn't dare. Well, folks, I hope this has given you all a kind of feeling and yearning for bear. We've tried mighty hard to provide you with an educational approach to this very underrated fur. And, of course, at the same time, reduce what you might call an unhealthy inventory of bear. As the saying goes, folks, we're loaded for bear.
My name is Captain Baggett Hype. I am a sailor, a man of the sea. For the sea, I love it, don't you know? As one of its most prolific chroniclers, its history is etched in my mind as deeply as the charts of the shoals off the Bahamas. Its glorious past is filled with heroic figures. Nelson, Farragut, Jones, Sir Thomas Lipton. A brisk one he. But today I wish to add another name and introduce to you as well his newest innovation in sailing. I speak of the man who has tread on tradition's toes. Commander Tewkesbury on the Clyde, and his 20th century concept of sport sailing. The all-feminine crew, or as he calls them, damsel deckhands. It's a day for it, what? Enough wind to fill the sails, enough sun to cut its chill, and a trim yar craft to carry us. But let me not digress and move on instead to the meat of our story. The sea and tradition are words much alike, both ringing with the sound of authority and greatness. As staunch and unmoving as a watertight bulkhead, yet Commander Tewkesbury has split the mainsail, so to speak, by providing the distaff side a seat, a share of sailing in a man's world and on a man's vessel. Our newest pioneer has a long list of seagoing firsts and achievements that would stretch certainly from tiller to poop deck. A true visionary, and yet not without critics. For his latest achievement is stirring the backwash in Davy Jones' locker, moving somewhat the hallowed mounds of past seagoing masters. For these men who have since dropped their last anchor and cried their last cast off, were men who steered a narrow course on land and sea. They trod the decks when a woman's presence on board, even the smallest frigate, was an omen of doom, a harbinger of disaster. For even as women were accepted at the polls and slowly exerted their influence and fought their battles of equality and acceptance in other activities, they had always been refused an equal seat below the mast. A woman's share of the 5 o'clock martini, yes. The right to work, naturally. That nicotine should touch their lips, but of course. But that their sterns should fit a ship's? Never. Incidentally, Commodore Tewkesbury is on board today, but being a completely modest individual, has asked gallantly that the lion's share of our pictorial coverage be devoted to his crew. I do think it only fair, however, to cover at least a bit of his past, if only in capsule form. Tewkesbury, so to speak, was born to the sea. In fact, at the age of 11 months, was nearly lost to us in a bathing accident while trying to hoist his diapers over the side of a bassinet. Yes, even at that age, the adventurer was showing through in his briny character. At the age of 10, when others were at cricket and at sea, a look ahead for us all, a preview of our sailing future. But now, now, my friends, be there wind in the sails, petrol in the tanks, who cares with the proper crew? Now, really, who cares? Cheerio.
Now, before we begin our tour of the botanical gardens, we think you should meet our guides who will act as your hosts today. That is Mr. Poindexter Gumbody on the left and Mr. Ravenswood Cathcart.
Oh, that Shandu is a tricky one. Well, I guess the next best thing to do is just rip it right open. Yeah, there. Now, once inside, you notice a can of kerosene and some large matches. Yeah. Now, this is the very first trick. Now, you must be a little careful with this one, as it's a trifle hard to get the hang of, but once you get it to work right, well, it's worth the final illusion and the admiring glances of your chums as they see Mommy and Dad go up and smoke.
Oh, boy. As Shandu suggests, you should really try this on brother or sister first before moving on to Mommy and Dad. Yeah, real fun, isn't it, kids? Now, the second trick is comparatively simple. A word of caution first, though. Don't pull the firing pin on the grenade now. No, you'll just have to send for another kit. Few sailing craft have received as much praise or been so often condemned as the catamaran. The reasons for such violent extremes of opinion can be traced in some instances to the extent of one's basic sailing knowledge, one's familiarity with the catamaran sailing technique, or even the feeling that tradition has been violated with the addition of another hull. There are, of course, many other reasons, but commonly one hears in praise such words as high speed, shoal draft, small angle of heel, broad decks, great stability, and in condemnation such phrases as can't go to windward, will not tack, no good in light air, a freak, or just...
This is a bathing suit. And this is a girl. Separately, these two are both, in a sense, aesthetic, appealing, place, and the living complements the inanimate, bringing its fibrous strands of lastex to life, infusing them with warmth, shape, testing strength and design, stresses, balances, exploring the engineering soundness of its black magic effect on the male population. This, then, is our story. An evolution. The revolution that brought these two finally together. The girl and the engineering miracle that enhances nature's gifts.
And so it went, down through the years with more and more clothes being added until the women got to looking so much like the men and the men stopped looking. And happily we began to move backwards in the bathing suit fashion. The late 50s styles really began the whistle era. And instead of 23 skidoo, it was 38C will do. That there suit kind of chokes you up, don't it? Now, this sequence tends to show, well, it means to prove, well, actually, it represents a kind of booming new industry. Sort of reminds you of a traveling salesman's expense account. Slightly padded.
Now, this little gal ain't what you'd call a professional model. In fact, some folks doubt she's for real. She does have problems. Or, to put it as she puts it, kind of folksy-like. Everything that happens to me seems to come in pairs. Example, the kumquat growers of America are having her investigated. And there's talk about the Berry Pickers Association planning some sort of legal chastisement. The Texas melon shippers are also giving her a great deal of thought. Buses during peak rush hours. Neighbors, one of the most familiar sounding names in history learning is bikini. In fact, folks still fuss about which one caused the biggest sensation. The mushroom above that mere snip of a barren island, or the belly viewed bare. Well, now looky here. If he wasn't dead for well nigh 30 years and buried deep, I'd think Uncle Rodney was tramping the land again. Now, this little darling has something up her sleeve. That's ridiculous, ain't it? Well, she's scheming something up. Yep, and I'm thinking this might be the answer to the critics of the bikini who claim it's too much too soon. Where do you go from here? I don't think this young'un smokes. She's been sheltered all her life from city ways. How about that? These here gals are kind of health addicts. Of course, swimming does develop lung power. This sight in California is not a mite unusual. I think if we've proved anything at all, it's that the water displacement in the modern swimming pool only was built for activities beyond and above the call of duty. Well, I think that bathing is healthful, whether you're wearing a suit or not, and that most swim, which